Did you realize that attorneys are more susceptible to imposter syndrome than any other profession? Studies reveal that from 62 to 75% of lawyers at one time or another experience imposter syndrome. Why is that? Stay tuned and we'll talk more in details about why so many lawyers are experiencing imposter syndrome. I think a lot of this, I've been working with lawyers for, over 25 years. And what I've experienced with the clients that I've had, which I've worked with hundreds of lawyers over the years, is there's this pressure. There's this pressure to be accepted. It's the pressure among their peers to look like they have it all together. Like it is not acceptable to not have it together. So that's an inner pressure that maybe if an attorney doesn't feel like they're up to par, or maybe they missed a trial or something would happen, or they missed a deadline, or they're afraid, they had to go their insurance for malpractice, all sorts of things that attorneys experience that other people don't. And is it fair to judge attorneys just because they have imposter syndrome? I think that anyone who's in those kind of situations that had those kind of pressures coming from so many different directions and having to stay on top of it, and things happen. Parents get sick, children get sick, spouses get sick, they get sick. They could be having financial difficulties. There could be a big bill, a big tax bill, getting kids to college, aging parents. There's so many different things that all of us experience, but then attorneys have all these other outside experiences and deadlines and pressures that most people don't. So the reason that attorneys experience imposter syndrome are many. Let me just talk about a few. So the first thing is the pressure to appear confident. That means no matter what, they have to hide it. If they have doubts or any kind of insecurities, that's a no-no. So it has to be hidden. Number two is like feeling that you may not measure up to the high standards of being an attorney. That is real. There are high standards. There are governmental regulations. There are, if you're in a firm, there's billable deadlines. There's all kinds of things that an attorney is liable for and must answer for. And so they don't have there's no wiggle room. It has to be done. So if you don't live up to those standards, then that's a reason that you might feel like I'm not measuring up. I feel like an imposter. Number three is, although all lawyers don't go to trial, they may have another version of that, but many of my clients do. They go to trial. They have to do depositions. They have to do mediations. Those are things that you have to prepare for. And if you don't prepare for those things, or if you don't have time, because you really don't have a lot of time, so it's like they have to squeeze it in their schedule to try to spend as much time as they can so that they can appear confident and knowledgeable of the whole thing. Sometimes it's like reading pages and pages and pages of documents to prepare. And maybe they don't have that kind of time to prepare. So then that's a pressure. When the appointment comes, in the deposition or the trial or the mediation, you have to walk in through the door and look like you have it all together, whether you do or whether you don't. Number three is the fear of not being able to keep up with the workload. And that is a real big problem because there's not enough hours in the day to handle most of the caseload, workload, let alone all the calls and interruptions and emails and all the distractions and meetings and all the things that have to happen. Plus, you're supposed to be doing some sort of client development and keeping up with the schedules and the demands and all the things. It can really make a lawyer feel inferior. But really, if you think about it, a lawyer is human, and anyone, whether any profession, who had those kind of demands would be worried about the workload. And there's no wiggle room. I think I've said it before. There's no wiggle room. Everything has to be done. Deadlines have to be made. Trials and mediations and arbitrations all have to be attended to. So therefore, whether you feel like you're great or whether you feel like you're not prepared or you are overwhelmed or you're depressed or you got a head cold or you have indigestion, it doesn't matter. So you go in feeling a quart low, feeling like an imposter. Number four is a big one among lawyers, and that is perfectionism. So many lawyers hold themselves to such an impossible standard. The standard of being a lawyer is already high. But then if a lawyer puts upon themselves, pummels themselves, beats themselves up because they're not perfect, that will really increase the the feeling of being an imposter. And number 5, comparisons. Most attorneys who compare themselves compare their insides with others' outsides. So lawyer B might be very good in hiding his feeling of feeling like an imposter or his inadequacies. He's not going to show his hand. He's not going to show that he's behind at work. He's not going to tell you that he's got a malpractice suit. He's not going to tell you that he's behind in everything. So here you go. Now you have an attorney and he's feeling overwhelmed. He's feeling like he's small because this lawyer over here really looks great. This lawyer has a bigger car, a bigger house, a prettier wife, on and on. But you have no idea. They have no idea what's going on with the other attorney. But this is something that really feeds into the imposter syndrome because everyone's showing their best foot. They're showing that they have it all together. They're showing that they can do everything all together. And then others are comparing themselves with them. And maybe they're even comparing themselves to you. So it's a no-win game when you're comparing yourself to others. There's a no-win game when you're trying to be perfect. So here's some answers that will help. Number 1, shed the mask. Just be you. It'll be so much more relaxing, less stressful, and probably the other person who's putting up a front will remove their mask too. You can always work on your self-confidence. People believe that self-confidence, you're just born with self-confidence. No, self-confidence is a muscle that you work on every day. You work on self-confidence every day. If you don't know how to work on self-confidence every day, hire a coach or a therapist or whatever you need to do to find out, but you can work on self-confidence and have your self-confidence even grow and get bigger if you work on it. Don't think it just automatically happens. It's a muscle. Just like lifting any kind of weight, you have to practice, you'll get stronger, and you do want to work every single day on building and boosting your confidence. The other thing you want to do is you want to get support. No man or woman is an island. We all get frustrated. We all get stressed. We all have things. But if you bottle it up, this is where depression comes in. This is where suicidal ideations come from. It's when you bottle it up and you don't have anyone to bounce that off. That's why having a coach or support or mentor or support group is excellent because you can let these things out. And so then you can be relaxed and enjoy your day. The other thing you can do is you can admit your strengths and your weaknesses. It's not a crime to have weaknesses. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. None of us, we're all human. And so if you kind of admit your strengths and admit your weaknesses, then that way you will find out what you can work on and what are the things, maybe there's some things you need to delegate. You know, one of those things really with me is for me to realize, Pamela, you're good at this, but you're not good at this. And when I do that, I can I can delegate that. Makes my life a lot easier. Don't be everything to everyone because you can't. You have limitations and weaknesses. We all do. And enjoy that and celebrate that. I'm strong in this, and these are things I need to work on. These are things, that, I'm going to delegate those. Admit it, and then admit your strengths, admit your weaknesses. Okay, I've talked about this before, but let go of perfectionism. It's lethal. It will not help you. It will only make you feel more like an imposter. The other thing that we talked about earlier is stop comparing yourself to others. Just doing those things alone will help you to overcome and triumph over the imposter syndrome. And you deserve it. Learn how to enjoy your life. Learn how to find happiness and laughter, productivity, and all those things lead to you being a much more successful lawyer and making much more money. I'll see you next time. Click the button to subscribe.